Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 6, Union Organizing Campaigns. We're finally here. We've talked about philosophy, we've talked about laws, and we've talked about, member union activity and all that stuff. How do you get a union? How do you formally start a union? The steps we're going to talk about are established through other federal law, primarily the Wagner Act. This is how you start a union. These are kind of the rules that the NLRB has set down. It says, okay, it's a legal entity, which means there's specific steps you need to follow before you can be recognized as a union. So we're going to talk about that today. So we're going to talk about it in the sense of you don't have a union. You're working for a company, there's no union presence there. The first thing that usually happens is somebody gets mad. A worker gets mad. Dadgummit, it's not right. They don't pay us enough, they don't treat us right, they don't listen to me when I talk. I try to bring in suggestions, they ignore me. That's that voice thing. Remember we talked about that early on. That's the one thing people want more than anything is voice. At least respect me as a human being. At least listen to me. I know more about this plant than you do. Or at least you think you do. So please listen to me. Just at least listen. You don't have to agree with me. Just listen. That would drive people madder than anything you can ever do. You really want to make your significant other mad, not that you would want to. But when you get home today, ignore them. I mean, don't be mean to them. Pretend they're not there. Don't even make eye contact. That won't last but about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And then it'll be like, oh my goodness, you have created World War III. So that's what they were doing. These companies were ignoring workers, and it just drove them crazy. It drives them crazy to this day when that happens. So the first thing that happens is they get mad. They just get absolutely furious. And usually they'll talk to their buddies, but usually not. That's kind of crazy. Usually they will, and usually they won't. But there's a chance they'll talk to their buddies, fuss about it, maybe get some support. But usually it's one person who's just furious, fed up. They can either quit or they can take some kind of action. And they don't want to quit. They've been here too long. They like something about the job. They want to stay. So the first thing after getting mad is that person would contact a union. This is how simple it is. Look in the phone book. There are union numbers in your phone book. It might not be the exact union you want to talk to, but there are union numbers in that phone book. And they're going to, because they want people to be able to easily contact them. So you're mad, and you're flipping through the phone book, and I don't know, I'm gonna make it something difficult. You're an electrician. That's probably too easy. But you're an electrician. And so you look through and you really can't find an electrical union, which you probably could, that's what I'm saying. But you look through and you just find the word union and a phone number. And remember, you're mad. You're furious. You're fed up. They have moved you to behavior. When people get moved to behavior, phone call, letter writing, you've touched them. So they call the number. And this is a newspaper worker union. May I help you? Wrong union. You don't care. And you say, look, I'm an electrician. I work over here in Aiken, and I got this ply. You tell the whole story real quick. When you call like the state government, they go, could you please wait? I put you on hold. Let me give you a 1-800 number. You're not going to hear that. You're going to hear, brother, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's almost quote what you're going to hear. Brother, I know exactly what you're talking about. I once had a job and it wasn't unionized, and they treated me like it. You have found your soulmate. They are going to commiserate. He's only going to do it for a couple minutes, but he's going to make you feel like you absolutely made the right decision in picking up the phone today. And then he's going to say, look, we're the restaurant worker union, and I thank you for calling. Absolutely. I'm going to put you in contact with the guy you need to speak to. And I'm going to stay on the phone till I get you to make sure you're hooked up. And it's not going to be like, here's another number, call. No. See, unions want members. This is a sales opportunity. So when you call that union, he's not going to say, well, here's the 1-800 number. I'm not the right guy to talk to. It ain't that. It's like, I'm going to be with you till you get a hold of the person you need to talk to. So you get transferred. Electrical union worker may help you, and boom. You tell him your story again, and now you really get commiseration. But I was an electrician. I know exactly what you do. And then he's going to say, hey, do you like that new, he's going to throw all kind of stuff in. Do you like that new thing they got out, that new tool? Yeah, I really like that too. I mean, this guy's going to be your best friend by the time you get off the phone. So he's going to talk, and he's going to say, okay, what's the deal? Now, on one side, emotionally, I'm all for you. I'm going to do everything I can to help you. On the other side, there's an economic situation. If there's only 2 you guys that work at this plant that do what you do, we're not going to spend a whole lot of money helping you unionize 2 people. We want members, a bunch of members. So in the conversation, there are going to be questions like, well, how many people work at your plant? Just innocuous questions that you don't even know what's going on. Well, of that, how many of y'all are electricians? How much work does electricians do? What's the number and all? He's trying to decide the next step. So, if he decides the number's big enough, I can't tell you what the number is. I'd say 30 plus, but that's no guarantee. It doesn't have to be. One person can start a union. I mean, one person can be the only member of a union. So there's no law that says it's got to be this big. The union knows, though, that it's from a size standpoint, from a power standpoint, from an economical standpoint, there's got to be a minimum number. And I threw out 30 just because that's what you read. You see that, you know, that's just kind of that will happen. So let's make it a little better. Let's say you say, you know, I really think, I don't know for sure, but there's probably 100 of us out there. It's a pretty big plant. Probably 100 of us out there doing electrical work. You've got the guy's attention, there's no doubt. So, what he will say is, and this is not always exact, but it's in general what will happen. We're going to send somebody to talk to you. Somebody's going to come to your house, sit down, probably take you out for dinner, just to get some more information. So they're going to send somebody, and it'll be soon. It won't be like in a month. It's like, what are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing day after tomorrow? We'll send somebody out there. Because it's hot. We need to go now. So the union official, some union official, certainly not the guy you're talking to, will come, take you out to dinner, and will start asking even more questions. He'll say, I understand you said there's about 100 of y'all out there. Well, how many people you think work in the plant completely? So he's just gathering all this information. And then he's going to say, are you the only one that feels like that? No, that's not what he's going to say. He's going to say, I'm sure there are a lot of other electricians out there that feel the exact same way you just. They just didn't have the courage that you had to step up and try to fight this injustice. And you go, yeah. He's going to say, well, let's meet them. Let's have a meeting at your house. Let's have a cookout in your backyard. Invite me, get some of those your friends that feel the exact same way. So what they're doing is they're literally creating almost like a political structure, a political organization. Let's get people involved. And you know the old game. Why don't you bring 10 of your trusted guys and we'll have a cookout. And then we'll say to each one of them, you go get 10 of your guys, best friends. So now we're just building this thing. We're just building because we want to talk to a lot of people. We're not going to vote yet. We just don't even know if the vote's going to win yet or not. We're just kind of doing trial balloons now. So the union rep's going to deal with you and your buddies of like mind to try to come to some kind of sense of how many people do we have here that would join the union. So once the union guy finally starts feeling that there's some momentum. If he comes and you say, let's get some of your buddies and 2 show up, there's going to be a point where the union guys look, we'll help you, but we don't think you're quite ready yet. They're not going to say, look, dude, it ain't worth our time. That's what they mean. But we're beyond that. We're saying that it's working now. Okay. Hypothetically, we've got enough people that are going to make this worth our while. So after we've finally had some meetings with you, the union guy is really going to go Google. He's going to pull this plan up because he wants to know, what's the total number of people here? How many electricians do you have here? And these numbers are important for one reason, because during this process, the union and the union rep needs to, you and the union rep need to determine the bargaining unit. Now here's what I mean by the bargaining unit. Let's say there are 500 people that work for your plant. The union would love for every one of them to be in the union. The union wants members. But the union knows out of that 500, we got a bunch of management. They're never going to join. We got a bunch of administrative people. They're never going to join. We got some people in IT. They're not going to join. So the reason is that we're looking for this is I need to know what part of this 500 are we going to try to organize, unionize. Because I can unionize all 500, I can unionize 250, I can unionize 100, I can unionize 30. We want as many as we can get. We want as many that we think will lead us to success. But I am not going to say, let's go after 500, because the union guy knows that will not win. He will not get a simple majority of that group to say they want to be in the union. He knows that. All right, any questions? So this is what he'll do. He'll look at all those groups, because he's not going to turn his back on anything that he thinks he can get. But he'll look at those groups and he'll say to himself, you know, I really just need to organize the electrical workers. I've talked to this guy, I've talked to a bunch of his buddies. They're the group that seems to be mad. They're the group that seems to have issues. So why don't we, and he's just thinking now, it's not official yet, but at some point it's going to become official. Why don't we just say we are going to use everybody who's classified as an electrical worker as our bargaining unit? And he's going to get okay from the guy you're dealing with, the local guy that called that was mad. He's going to try to get all the buddies that have come in, because you want them on your side, even though you know that that's probably the best bet, and that's probably what's going to lead to victory if we can. And you have to convince them, dudes, because they're going to say, well, what about everybody? And you have to explain to them, look, we've got to get 51% of whatever bargaining unit we designate. And we call the shot here. We identify the bargaining unit. So this is what I would suggest. Let's use electrical workers as our bargaining unit. There are only 100 electrical workers at this plant, which means we only need to get 51% of that 100 to say they want the union, and we will be a union. Now how you get to that, we want to be the union, we're not done yet. But that's the ultimate goal. That's why we stop right here and identify the bargaining unit. Because you have to tell the company and the NLRB, here's the bargaining unit. So you can't be messing with these numbers as you get into the game. You set it up front. So in our situation, we decided electrical workers were our bargaining unit. There are 100 workers that classified as electrical workers. We only need 51 of those to say yes, and we now have a union. Now, once you identify that, and the union guy says, yeah, I've talked to a lot of these electricians, I think it's good, let's move with that. You will write, with the help of the union rep, a letter to the company, and you will also notify the NLRB that we are going to attempt to organize this plant. Organize means unionize. We're going to start the process. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we're going to start the process that, in fact, we want to be a union. And we are going to use the electrical workers as our bargaining unit. That's what we have decided, and that's their decision. Now, here comes the technicality. What if you think there's only 100, but when it finally comes down to voting, we're months down the road? Oh, no, there were 140. So you didn't need 51 votes, you needed 71 votes. They can't do that because once you identify the bargaining unit, the NLRB now, the government body now goes into the company and goes, I need a list of everybody that's classified as an electrician. I need your number because that's the number that we're going to use. And we want to make sure that you don't have some people classified as electrical workers that aren't electrical workers. You got some manager over there who's got an electrical engineering degree. He's not an electrical worker though, but you've got him classified as one. So we need to clean that up. Because whatever number we finally decide on, the union and the company, these are your electrical workers, that's the number that all the percentages for victory or defeat are going to be calculated on. So to make it easy, there really were just 100 electrical workers. After we went through the list, in fact, there were 100, which means to win, I only need 51% or 51 of these guys to say, I want to, I vote for the union to become the union. But we're a long way off. So once we decide this bargaining unit, and once we get the official number for this bargaining unit, the next step is called interest cards. What a huge debate this has become. Interest cards are still called interest cards. An old interest card was a 3x5 card. In fact, here's a picture of one right now. That said, I would like to learn more information about the electrical union. That's all I would say. I would like to find out more information about the electrical union, and then they had to sign it. Put your name down. Nowadays, it doesn't say that. Excuse me. God, who's calling me now? Beyonce, hey girl, what's up? Does he know you're calling me? Look, he's my friend too. You can't keep calling me like this. I know how you feel. I do, but you've been with him. You cannot keep calling me. I do. You are a very attractive woman. I know that, but look. I'll call you tonight. Okay? Is that okay? I'll call you tonight. All right. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Here's what you have to do now. Back to the bargaining unit. We've identified it. It's 100 strong. That number is so important. Now I go out and I pass out interest cards. We talked about what the interest card said. Nowadays, this is what it says. I will vote for the union, the electrical union, to represent me at this plant. My vote will be yes, and you sign it. Now here's the deal. To be able to call an election, to be able to even have the opportunity to say yes I want a union or no I don't, the law says, the Wagner Act says, you have to get at least 30% of the bargaining unit to say they would like more information, or nowadays to say, yeah, given the chance, I would vote for the union. So if we've got 100 people as our bargaining unit, we need 30% signing the interest card in a positive manner. That means I need to get at least 30 interest cards back. 30 interest cards from this 100 group of electrical workers. 30. That's my legal threshold. If you pass out interest cards and you come back with 30 in this situation, the union guy is going to go, okay, I know we have the legal right to call for an election, set it all up. We're not going to do that. This was a pretty good pre-vote. And you've only got 3 out of 10 people saying they want to vote. You're 20% off, at least 20% off. So we're not going to vote. We're going to continue to, and they'll do that. They'll send out interest cards and they'll get them back, compare them to that bargaining unit list, and it'll be low, and they'll go, we're not quite ready to call for a union. You guys haven't worked hard enough. We need to have some more meetings. All these meetings are external to the company. They're in your house or at the rec center or down at T-Bones or something, and because you guys don't have enough interest. You're not going to win this. This is like a poll. You're not doing real well. So let's say the first time you go through and you really have done a good job. You've talked about it, and you get 45%, 40%. I don't know where the break even. There's a number that union rep's going to go, that's not enough, or yeah, it's kind of, or daggone, we're dead on it. So it all depends. The union's going to make that call on whether we're going to move forward on this. Now, what if you get 52%, 60% of the bargaining unit that says, absolutely, I want the union? What do? Well, that still just gives you the right to call for an election. A lot of times unions would walk in when that happened and go, look, management, 60% said they want the union. Why don't you just recognize us? That's all you have to do. Just recognize us legally, and we won't have to go through the expense of an election and all the pain that you'll have to go through. Companies will never do that. In fact, though, there was a campaign issue in 2008. It didn't even come up in 2012. But in 2008, there was a campaign issue where the Democrats were trying to put forth a measure in Congress that said if you got over 50% interest cards signed in the affirmative, the union was in automatically. We don't want to have to go. Why would we go through another election when this election basically says we want the union? That was a big push in the 2008 election, and it was almost a promise. I will put this legislation into place. It never came about, and because cooler heads prevailed. And my personal opinion is that was a good decision, that we do not put that into place. And here's why. An interest card is signed by the person indicating the way they vote. Yes, because it says that. Yes, I want the union to represent me, Mike Ritchie. Nowhere else in our society does anybody have the right to find out how I voted or how you voted. That's why we go into that voting booth by ourselves. And that's a guarded right. So, I don't like the fact that we would use interest cards, a vote that has a signature on it. And it has to have a signature on it to determine if in fact it was part of the bargaining unit. So they do that to make sure that I wasn't just some guy off the street signed the card. It has to be verified as a bargaining unit. I understand that. But I also understand that's why it can't be used as the final vote, because there's a signature on it. So here's the deal. Let's say some people go, well, what's the big deal with the signature? Well, let's say the union wins, but I didn't turn in a card, which means I was no against the union. So now all my buddies on the floor are union members, and they know I was the guy who didn't vote for the union. How am I going to be treated day to day? So let's say that I voted for the union and the union lost. Well, now the company knows, okay, he's one of those union guys. Got to watch him. You don't want to promote him. Absolutely not. Don't give him any authority or responsibility. He's that union guy. He voted. We got his name on a signature card where he voted. So I like the idea of interest cards to get to an election. I personally don't like the idea of using interest cards to determine the election. And that's why, because it is not secure. Okay, it's not anonymous, and voting has got to be anonymous. To be effective, Mike's opinion, voting has got to be anonymous. But I digress. Hypothetically, we hand out the interest cards. We get back 45%. We get some number that gives the union a feeling, yes, we can win this. I then go to management and I call NLRB and I say, we're going to have an election. Now, management going to sit down hard with that list that they gave you of your bargaining unit and check off every name to make sure there's not any funny business. And NLRB is going to do the exact same thing. That takes about what? A minute So they do that and they go, okay, everything's legal here. We're going to have an election. Now we need to sit down and set the election date and the process. The process is pretty easy. You vote. The date is always a dispute. The company wants the election to be like 10 years from now. We need to get ready. I'm being funny. Let's say 6 months. Well, 6 months from now, we're right in the middle of busy season. We ain't got time. We need to get our ducks in a row, et cetera, et cetera. The union wants the election tomorrow. That don't happen. It's usually within 6 weeks. That's a reasonable time. All this has been through the courts. Just thousands of cases where, and so the courts have kind of decided 4 to 6 weeks is kind of a reasonable time period. The election needs to be well posted early, which means it's going to be 6 weeks from now. It's going to be on May the 10th. There have been cases where the election booth, the ballot booth, was set up behind the boilers in the building on the back acre. You can't do that. The election point has to be easily accessible, readily identifiable, et cetera, et cetera. There have been situations where we're only going to have an election during the first shift. Well, that's crazy because we got 2 shifts, others that aren't here. A lot of elections take at least over a 24-hour period. Sometimes they go longer than that. And you go, why over a 24-hour period? Well, what if I'm on a rotating shift work and I'm off for these next 3 days and that's when the election's held? So you've got to do everything that makes it available, easily available for everybody to vote that wants to vote. NLRB oversees all this. They'll step in and go, you can't do that. That's just wrong. So they make sure that it's as fair and as equitable as it possibly can be. So you have your election. It's going to be on May 10th. It's going to be 24-hour period because that makes sense because we don't have any rotations and stuff. So everybody can come in and vote and you have your election. 51% of your bargaining unit, which is 100 members, that's how important that is. We get 51 votes. The union now is recognized. Listen to what I just said. The union is now recognized as the bargaining unit for this company by the company and by the federal government. Recognized. We just threw it through all this work that we went through just to be recognized. We don't have a contract. Tomorrow, nothing changes. Same wage, same benefits, same work schedule, nothing changes tomorrow. All this gives me the right to is to be recognized. Remember we talked about those 3 main things? Recognition, negotiation, and administration. All of this work, only thing it gave me was the right to be recognized. I am now a legal entity, and I have rights in the judicial system. And the right that I have fought for, all this hard work, all of this fussing and fighting, the only right I now have is to sit down at a table with the company at a specified date to start talking about situations and behaviors and working conditions that I would like to put in a contract that maybe I can persuade you to sign. So we haven't really won a whole lot here, but we've run an incredible amount. I've won the amount that you have. What I've won is you now have to recognize me. You have to sit down with me and talk to me. And we're going to talk about some other things later on because you can get rid of a union through the same process you get a union. It's called decertification. Just because the union won does not mean, won recognition, does not mean that they always have recognition. So we're going to talk about that at a later date. But right now, that's basically how a union comes into being. It is a process that is democratic, that has regulations, and that has been used basically since 1935. So that ends that. I'll see you guys later. And